Imagine you're Keir Starmer, sitting in number 10, already dealing with the Chinese embassy disaster, the Chagos Islands catastrophe, plummeting approval ratings, and a government that can't seem to go 5 minutes without stepping on another political landmine. Then your phone buzzes with a news alert. Andrew Gwynne stepping down as MP for medical reasons, and Andy Burnham's potentially coming back to Westminster. Your first thought is probably, oh, brilliant, exactly what I needed. A charismatic rival with leadership ambitions positioning himself for a challenge while I'm already firefighting on 12 different fronts. GB News literally interrupted their programming with a breaking news alert about this, and Martin Daubney made absolutely clear what this means, a potential head-to-head showdown between Starmer and Burnham. Welcome to UK Political Insight, where Keir Starmer's week has just gone from catastrophically bad to, are you actually kidding me right now? Let's break down why this news is absolutely devastating for the Prime Minister and what it means for the future of the Labour Party. Right, so the breaking news that stopped GB News in its tracks was Andrew Gwynne announcing he's standing down as MP for Bourton and Denton. Now, officially, this is for medical reasons, and if that's genuinely the case, obviously you wish him well and hope he recovers. But the timing is absolutely extraordinary, and the political implications are seismic, because Andrew Gwynne stepping down creates a vacancy in exactly the kind of Greater Manchester seat that would be perfect for Andy Burnham to parachute into, if he's serious about returning to Westminster. Martin Daubney's delivery of this news was absolutely perfect for capturing the political significance. He didn't bury the lead, he went straight to the point. This paves the way for Andy Burnham's potential Westminster return. And more than that, it sets up a head-to-head showdown with Keir Starmer down the line. That's not subtle political analysis. That's stating the obvious implication that everyone in Westminster will immediately understand. Burnham's been mayor of Greater Manchester for nearly a decade. Gwynne's seat is in Greater Manchester. If he wins it, he's back in Parliament, and from there, he can challenge Starmer directly. The phrase paving the way is doing a lot of work in that announcement, because it suggests this isn't just coincidence. Politics doesn't really do coincidence. When a seat conveniently opens up in exactly the right location, at exactly the right time, for exactly the right person, you start asking questions about whether deals have been done, conversations have been had, arrangements have been made. Gwynne's medical reasons might be entirely genuine, but the political convenience is striking. For Starmer, this is an absolute nightmare scenario. He's already struggling. His government's approval ratings are terrible. He's facing criticism from all sides over policy decisions that range from questionable to catastrophic. His own backbenchers are getting restless. And now, a credible rival who's tried for the Labour leadership twice before might be positioning for another shot. That's not just a political headache. That's an existential threat to his leadership. The head-to-head showdown language is particularly significant because it frames this in explicitly adversarial terms. This isn't two colleagues working together for the good of the party. This is two rivals competing for the top job. Daubney's not speculating wildly here. He's reading the political tea leaves that everyone else can see. If Burnham comes back to Westminster, especially if he wins a by-election in a seat that's currently projected to potentially flip to Reform, he immediately becomes a serious leadership contender. Think about the optics from Burnham's perspective. If he runs in Gorton and Denton and wins, he's demonstrated he can win in exactly the kind of working-class northern seat that Labour's hemorrhaging to reform. That's powerful political capital. That's proof of concept. That's evidence that he can connect with voters in a way Starmer apparently can't. And if those voters choose Burnham over Reform, he can legitimately claim to be the person who can save Labour from electoral wipeout in its traditional heartlands. But here's where it gets really interesting and really risky. The latest polling for Gorton and Denton, as we discussed earlier, shows Reform on 30% and Labour on 28%. That's a seat that could easily flip. If Burnham runs and loses, his career is finished. If he runs and wins narrowly, he's proven he can compete but hasn't exactly covered himself in glory. If he runs and wins comfortably, he's instantly a serious threat to Starmer. The stakes could not be higher. From Starmer's perspective, every outcome here is problematic. If Burnham doesn't run, the seat might flip to Reform, which is humiliating for the government and confirms Labour's losing working-class voters. If Burnham runs and loses, it's still humiliating because Labour lost a seat, and it shows that even their supposed big hitters can't save them. If Burnham runs and wins, Starmer's got a charismatic rival in Parliament actively positioning to replace him. There's no good option. The fact that GB News interrupted programming for this tells you how significant they think it is. Breaking news alerts are reserved for genuinely important developments. This isn't filler. This isn't speculation. This is a major political story that could reshape the Labour Party's internal dynamics. And the speed with which Daubney connected the dots to a potential Starmer-Burnham showdown shows that everyone in political media immediately understood the implications. Let's talk about the timing, because that's crucial. Starmer's government has had one of the worst weeks imaginable. The Chinese embassy approval has triggered fury across the political spectrum, including from Labour's own MPs. The Chagos deal continues to generate criticism and has now been publicly trashed by Donald Trump. Energy policies under attack, economic numbers aren't great, and right in the middle of all this chaos, when Starmer's at his weakest, a path opens up for his most credible internal rival to return to Westminster. If you were writing this as political fiction, editors would reject it as too convenient. The medical reasons cited by Gwynne deserve to be taken seriously, and at face value. Politicians do sometimes step down for genuine health reasons, and that's entirely legitimate. But the political impact is the same regardless of motivation. A seat has opened up, Burnham could fill it, and that changes everything about Labour's internal dynamics. Daubney's emphasis on this past 15 minutes underscores how fresh this news is. This isn't something that's been rumored for weeks. This is breaking right now, and the political world is scrambling to understand implications and figure out what happens next. That sense of immediacy makes it feel even more significant, like watching a political earthquake in real time. The phrase "could run as a Labour Party candidate" is interesting because it suggests there's still a decision to be made. Burnham hasn't officially declared. He's presumably weighing his options, talking to advisors, looking at polling, calculating risks. But the fact that this is even being discussed as a serious possibility tells you that Westminster insiders think it's plausible. They think Burnham might actually do this. From Burnham's perspective, the calculation must be agonizing. Stay as mayor of Greater Manchester, which is secure, comfortable, significant, and keeps him relevant, or gamble everything on a by-election in a seat that might flip to Reform, with the prize being a return to Westminster and a potential shot at the leadership, but the risk is complete career annihilation if it goes wrong. It's the highest stakes decision of his political life. The reaction from Labour MPs to this news is going to be fascinating to watch. Some will be thrilled because they see Burnham as a potential savior who can rescue the party from Starmer's struggling leadership. Others will be terrified because internal challenges and leadership speculation are politically toxic and destabilizing. And some will be calculating how this affects their own positions and whether they should back Burnham or stick with Starmer. For Starmer loyalists, this is a 5-alarm fire. They need to immediately start damage control, shore up support, remind MPs why they backed Starmer in the first place, and potentially prepare for a leadership election if this goes the way they fear. The next few weeks are going to be absolutely critical for Starmer's political survival. The fact that this is specifically about a Greater Manchester seat is symbolically important as well as practically. Burnham's entire political brand for the last decade has been built around being mayor of Greater Manchester. He's Mr. Manchester in many people's minds. When he wins a Manchester seat to return to Westminster, that's a natural progression in the narrative. It's not some random constituency he's parachuted into, it's his home turf. That makes it more credible and more likely to succeed. But that also means if he loses, it's even more humiliating. Losing on your home turf in a city where you've been mayor for a decade would be absolutely devastating. It would suggest that even in the place where you should be strongest, voters have rejected you. That's career-ending stuff. The down-the-line qualification in Daubney's comment is important because it acknowledges this wouldn't be an immediate showdown. Burnham would need to win the by-election first, then establish himself in Parliament, then wait for the right moment to challenge leadership. But everyone understands that if he's coming back to Westminster at this stage of his career, it's not to be a backbencher, it's to position for leadership. The showdown isn't immediate, but it's inevitable if he returns. What's particularly brutal for Starmer is that he can't really do anything to stop this. He can't prevent Gwynne from stepping down for medical reasons. He can't prevent Burnham from running without looking petty and dictatorial. He can't prevent Labour members in Gorton and Denton from selecting Burnham as their candidate if he wants it. And he can't prevent Burnham from challenging for leadership if he gets back into Parliament. Starmer's essentially powerless to prevent a sequence of events that could end his premiership. The media narrative around this is going to be absolutely brutal for Starmer. Every news outlet is going to frame this as Burnham positioning to replace Starmer. Every interview with Labour MPs will include questions about whether they'd back Burnham over Starmer. Every policy announcement from the government will be overshadowed by leadership speculation. It's going to dominate the news cycle and make governing even harder than it already is. For Reform UK, this is also interesting because they must be looking at this